So in the game of making money, everybody wants to get more, right? But here's one thing you have to understand that in the game of wealth building, there's only one thing that matters, and it is the operating mindset. In the tech field, they call it the operating system. It is the thinking behind how you try to make money that determines how much money you make. And I know that sometimes it can sound abstract. Sometimes it sounds like, like like dust, like something that some magician conjures out of the top of your head and uses it to bamboozle people. But it is true. Think about it like God saying, if you worship me and you do the things that I want you to do, then I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make your path straight and you'll get everything you want in life and afterwards, right? You've not seen God, you've not seen Him face to face, right? So, how do you believe? You believe because what you're essentially doing is taking a certain way, meaning that if you take that certain way and what you were told is correct, what it means is that you will have everything that is promised. It is the same thing in the money making business, the wealth generation business. If you think a certain way, if you have an operating system that works the right way, as far as making money is concerned, then you are going to have a lot of money. It is that simple. So, what we're going to talk about today is to talk about some of the things that having the wrong mindset, because the same way you can have the right operating system, you can also have the wrong operating system. Now, think about it like this. Think about a MacBook and a Windows PC, right? If you take a Windows operating system and you install it on a MacBook, it's not going to work. If you take a Mac operating system and you install it on a Windows operating system, it's not going to work. The only way it's going to work is if you create a bridge that allows this to work on this and that to work on that. But if you just try to install it directly, it's not going to work. So the same way, as far as it comes to the money game, the wealth building game, all of that, the same thing happens. The same exact thing happens. There's the wrong way to think about money and building wealth that will yield you just wrong results, misery, failed projects, brokenness. And then there's the right way, the right operating system, a way to think about it that will give you money, give you wealth, give you cars, give you assets, all of the good things that having wealth can provide you. So let's talk about some of the thinking that people who have either a broke mindset or a ready mindset can have. So here's one. So we're going to talk about it like this, right? So here we have broke, here we have world, right? So one characteristic is how people who are broke think is cost. How much does it cost? When they want to buy things, when you want to make an investment, what they are thinking about is cost. How much will it cost? How much will it cost me? Because they have a finite amount of money. So they're thinking in their head, if I take this out, how drastically would my life change if I take this out, right? The wealthy, they think about it in terms of ROI, return on investment, right? Return on investment, ROI. So what wealthy people are saying is, if I take this out, they still have a finite amount of money. Don't get me wrong. Just that their own definition of finite is, of course, many, many multiples that of the people on this side. But the money is still finite anyway. But then they're also still thinking to themselves, if I take this out of here, what is it going to get me in return? They're not thinking about it in terms of cost, right? They're not thinking about it in terms of cost. They're saying, what return on investment am I going to get if I spend this amount of money? So they view the spend on the ROI. The broke people view the spend on cost. Second rate, broke and really people think about money is broke people think about affirming it. right? They say, I can't. Growing old, I don't know how many times you heard this in your home. Can't. Oh, we can't afford it. We can't. And the reality is, truly, maybe you couldn't afford it. Could be the reality. But what the people will say, how can, they also think about it in terms of affording, but they say, how can I? How can I? Instead of I can't. I can't is a finality. When you say I can't, you are putting a finality. You are closing the doors to all possibilities. You are shutting the windows, shutting the doors, bolting the locks, and saying, there's no way I can do it. The other people are saying, yes, I need to afford it, but how can I afford it? What can I sell to afford it? What can I trade to afford it? What can I exchange to afford it? What services can I give somebody else in exchange for it? They're saying, how can I afford it? This is one of the biggest lessons I learned from reading the book Rich Dad and Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And he says that his rich dad taught him to stop thinking in terms of can't and start thinking in terms of how can. And when you begin to think like this, it makes a whole world of difference, guys. Makes a whole world of difference. Because now we're saying, how can I? Because this opens up all sorts of doors for you. You start thinking in terms of possibilities. So it's basically thinking about the same thing, affordability, but thinking about it in two drastically different ways. The same thing, but the way you approach them yields different outcomes. Okay? The second thing is, or rather, the third thing is that people say, I want a job. Rich people say, I want leverage. I want a job. I want leverage. I want a gig. I want leverage. So let me explain both these. A job is not just when you go apply for a job and submit a CV and then get called for an interview. A job can also be when you apply for a gig, right? Somebody hires you for something and they say, go do this or come do this for me. Now, let me give you guys an example. My friend runs or used to run the biggest skills betting company in my country, and I was a marketing consultant. And when they started the company, we used to provide our advice for free. We did the marketing for them for free. We did a lot of things for them for free. Why? Because at the time they were a growing company and they couldn't afford to pay us for the services. So we did it for free anyway, knowing that if they grew, then they were going to give us the business. Do you get it now? We knew that when they grew, they were going to give us the business. So instead of saying, hey, I want you to give me the gig and pay us this amount, we were like, oh, doesn't matter. You will do the thing anyway for you. And indeed, when they grew, they gave us the business and we made probably over 100 million from that one company per year, right? 100 million in naira now, obviously, in Nigerian currency. But the point is that instead of just seeking a gig, right, we sought leverage. We said, what can we forgo today in order to have more of it tomorrow? That is basically the idea behind this. So, what is leverage? Leverage is something that you do that gives you an inordinate or a disproportionate amount of an advantage. It is what you have. Archimedes says, he's a Greek philosopher. He said, give me a lever strong enough and I'm going to lift the world. Leverage is probably the biggest tool we can have in business. So let me give you an example of leverage. So an example of leverage is if you run a shipping line, for example, right? And you are the only shipping line in your entire country. So only your shipping line brings goods in and takes goods out. You have infinite leverage. Infinite leverage. Because people who need to export have to use your company. People who need to import have to use your company. So you can literally charge anything you like. You can charge low, you can charge high, you can charge whatever. Another example, I saw a tweet, a post on X, and the post said that Chinese people are annoying. They see a product manufactured by a US company, and the US company is selling it for $3,500, and the Chinese create the same exact kind of product and they sell it for 350. Why don't they sell it for 2,000? And I say, well, it's because they have leverage. They have lots and lots and lots and lots. And when I say lots, I mean tens of millions of educated people who they put to use they put them to use to work in factories. So that makes the cost of production, the labor side of production, very, very cheap for them. The second leverage that they have is that their country is so massive that it has literally all sorts of raw materials that you can think of. It has all kinds. Maybe not everything, but most raw materials, they have it in China, right? And the third is that their government is massively involved in companies and the economy, promoting companies, funding companies, building infrastructure, making it very, very easy for these businesses to thrive. So they have three different points of leverage that American companies do not have, right? That is the reason why they can take a $3,500 product, create something like it and sell it for 350, 10%. And if I have something that costs 3,500 and something that costs 350, and they both do exactly the same thing, which one do you think the regular person is going to want to buy? Obviously, the one that costs less. Obviously, that's how people who think normally would think. Now, obviously, we can now start talking about durability and how long it's going to last and all of the plenty nuances that warrants that dishes should sell for higher. Those are valid arguments. But on the surface of it, these guys can charge this low because they have far more leverage than the other guys. So that's basically what leverage is. Leverage is an undue advantage that you have, like I used to get something now and in the future, right? So now the next thing we're going to talk about is to again explain how broke people versus rich people see money. The fourth one is that rich people see money or broke people see money as a trophy. Rich people see it as a tool. What the broke people do once they get some bit of money, they try to show that they've arrived, try to show that they've made a lot of money, right? They buy fancy cars, fast cars, they take exorbitant foreign trips, they buy fancy jewelry. They go all out to announce that they've gotten some bit of money. But what rich people do is that they see money as a tool. While probably poor people see it as a trophy to display, these guys see it as a tool. Trophies are for displaying. Tools are for deploying. Trophies are for displaying. Tools are for deploying. So they take that money that they have made and they put it to work to produce even more money. They invest it in stocks, in bonds, in money instruments, in crypto. They invest it in building new factories. They invest it in hiring more people. They invest it in promotion and advertisements to yield even more money. That is how rich people view money versus poor. All right, so let's see again. Broke. Then again. So broke people they avoid risk. They avoid risk, even smart risks. Yeah, but like what do people do? Like people don't avoid risk. They embrace it. They embrace risk. So even if they feel now they have learned something about why they fail. So even if they want to do it over again, they now know exactly what not to do. The broke people, they tend to avoid risk in every single form because they don't want to lose. Now, you can't aim to be rich if you're always trying not to lose. It's like playing a football match and not wanting to cross the center line. You want to be in your half all the freaking time. So you don't get to score any goal. If you do that, you don't get to score any goal. So that's what happens there, right? The next thing that happens is people who don't have a lot of money, people who are broke, what they do is they hoard. Wealthy people, they multiply. Broke people, they hoard, they save, they scrape. They think paying $10 for a Netflix subscription is doing too much. And by the way, don't pay for Netflix subscription if you don't have a lot of money, right? That time is better spent doing things that will make you money rather than just pissing it off watching some movie, right? So I'm just using these as an example. Broke people hawk, rich people multiply. So they put the money, they take money that they have, again, similar to they using it as a tool, right? They put it to work. Next thing is that broke people, what they do is we see challenges as self-judgments, right? They think it's because of them that bad things are happening to them. And maybe sometimes it is, to be honest, right? But wealthy people, what they do is that they see challenges as opportunity. They see challenges as opportunities, right? These guys see challenges as self-judgment and they see it as blockages. They see it as a blockage. Wealthy people see challenges as opportunities. An example is we manufactured our supplements in China, and then eventually we manufactured them in India, and we sold them in my country, in Nigeria. And what happened was the government increased importation tariffs. Importation tariffs were so high that the cost of the tariffs were more than the cost of the goods that we were importing. So what do? We don't cry ourselves to sleep. What we did was we say, okay, what do we do? How do we figure this out? So we did a study and we figured out that 90% of the ingredients that our products use were sourced from Nigeria. The raw materials were sourced locally from Nigeria. So we decided to set up a manufacturing plant in Nigeria that is actually ongoing as we speak. So we have a manufacturing plant being constructed right now to manufacture our own products in the country. So now, once it's done, we don't need to spend any money on the protection tariffs anymore. So we see this. I saw it as an opportunity. I saw it as an opportunity to have local content. Some people who are also in the same business have quit the business because they saw the protection tariffs as something to block their progress, right? So that's it. Now, to further illustrate these two different kinds of mindset, so I'm going to take you guys back to the story. If you're Christian, I'm sure you've heard this story before. It's called the parable of talents, where a rich man was taking a journey to a far off land, and while he was taking that journey, he gave his servants money, and he gave them that money, and then he traveled. And by the time he left, one of the servants went and hid the money, dug a hole in the ground and put it there. And the other two servants went and invested the money. And when the master came back, and he called them to give an account, right? The one who he gave 10 produced 10 more. The one who he gave 5 produced 5 more. The one who he gave 2 talents produced 2 more. The one he gave 1 returned 1 and said, well, I dug a hole and I buried it because I knew you're a very shrewd man and I didn't want to lose the money. And of course, he said that he was going to take what was given to him and he give it to the person who produced the most, right? So now, what does all of this mean in content? What it means is that when you hoard, you can't grow anything. That's number one. When you hoard, you cannot grow anything. You don't progress. There's no progress. there's only stagnation when you earn. So saving is good, but saving for the sake of saving alone is a waste of time, resources, and your purpose on earth, really. When you don't grow something, you are doing a disservice to yourself. But when you grow it, you are making even more abundance happen. And you have to understand that as far as you're in this world, as one being, your assignment is to grow. Your literal job in the entire seeking world is to go and multiply. That is basically what the Bible says. Go and multiply. It didn't say multiply just by having kids. It means multiply in every freaking area, every single area of your life. So you have to go and multiply. And you cannot multiply when all you do is just hoard and you hoard and you hoard and you save and you scream and you don't take a cup of coffee because it's going to cost you a few quid, right? So you have to have this mentality. Have to have the mentality of the well-being. What is that mentality? ROI. Think in terms of ROI. Think in terms of how can you afford the things that you want. Because when you think of how can you afford it, it opens up doors of possibilities for you. You ask yourself that you want to leverage, you go for leverage. You employ everything that you have as a tool rather than a trophy, right? And then you embrace rules rather than variables. You take the things that you have and multiply it rather than hoarding it. And every setback, you take every setback as an opportunity because every setback has a seed of opportunity buried inside it. So, guys, I hope you've learned so much from this video that we have shared here today. And I hope this video helps you to think more about how you're living your everyday life as far as being in business, making money, producing wealth is concerned. If you like this video, I want you to comment wealth in the comment section below. Let us know what you like about the video. And of course, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. We do videos like this to serve people like you. And I hope you like it. I'll see you again in the next one. Cheers.